the lattice seed stitch. Hi, I'm Kristen and welcome back to my channel, Studio Knit. This lattice seed knit stitch pattern creates a wide braided basket weave design atop a seeded background. It looks like a complicated cable design, but it is actually achieved with just a simple combination of knits and purls. It's a really impressive texture and it looks stunning knitted up as a blanket, pillow, or scarf. I included it in my color block scarf pattern right here, and this is a free pattern. I'll have the link down in the description below for you. If you'd like to give the lattice seed knit stitch pattern a try, please like up this video. It lets me know that you'd like to see more just like this. If you're not already, make sure to subscribe to Studio Knit. This is an 18 row repeat, so it is a little bit more on the intricate side. There are these vertical stripes of stockinette with some horizontal stripes in garter. They interweave to create this visually really interesting design. You can see that the lattice work is atop this background bed of the seed stitch. This is not a reversible pattern because it's only the front, the right side of our work, that shows the textured design. Here on the back, also called the wrong side of the work, it is little blocks of the seed stitch that you can see on the back, but it is not identical to the front. And this design is really self-containing, so I did not add any extra stitches for a border. I simply knit the lattice seed knit stitch pattern as it is, and you'll see that the bottom and the sides, it sort of has a border of its own, and I really like that look a lot. For the written pattern, you can find it totally for free over on my website, Studio Knit. This is also included in my knit stitch pattern book. There's both a printed and an e-book version available for immediate download. And since it's an 18 row repeat, it is in the lower section, the last section right here. It starts on page 73. And opening the book up, you can see there's a full color photo along with its knitting chart if you enjoy reading knitting charts. I also have a video if you'd like to learn more about that. And we have instructions both flat and in the round, and you can see there are a lot of K's and P's in those instructions. And this pattern lies flat quite easily. However, I still do recommend blocking your piece if you're able to. I just have a really simple system where I wet my piece on both sides and I pin it down to my blocking mats. I just let it sit overnight, or maybe sometimes 24 hours, and it just has a really beautiful drape. The stitches look perfect, and I always prefer the look of a blocked piece. For your materials, you can knit this in any size yarn that you'd like. Just make sure to have appropriately sized knitting needles and some little scissors and a tapestry needle on hand. We'll be knitting this pattern up shortly, and it will be a left-handed knitting tutorial. So if you are here looking for the right-handed version, I have a link down in the description below. So let's knit it up. We begin by casting on in multiples of 14 plus 2 stitches. So this little swatch, I am simply going to do 14 plus 2 stitches. You would probably want your piece to be longer, so just make sure to keep casting on in multiples of 14, and at the very end add those 2 stitches. On row 1, we are going to be purling 7. So it's purling 7, and we're working in between those asterisks, those little stars right there. So after you purl 7 stitches, it is knitting 2 stitches and purling 5. So you'll see 7, 2, 5. That adds up to 14. So for this pattern, I'm going to be knitting all 14 stitches. And then once I have completed that pattern, at the very end, we are going to add those last 2 stitches, those last 2 purl stitches right there that we see with P2. On row 2, we're beginning with knit 2. So we're just knitting these 2 stitches once. And then we are repeating the pattern between the asterisks, those little stars, all the way down the row. So again, I only cast on 14 stitches. So I'm going to be knitting 5, purling 2, and knitting 7. And that will get me all the way to the end of this row. If you have cast on more stitches, then you will continue K5, P2, K7 until you get to the end of your row. Row 3 is as simple as it gets. We're simply knitting all, so that means it's the knit stitch all the way down the row. Now for row 4, it is the same as rows 6 and 8. So I'm only going to show this once. On row 4, 6, and 8, you're beginning with purling 2, and then it is the repeat pattern. So it's K1, P1, K1, P1, K1. So that's 5 stitches. And for those of you experienced with the seed stitch, you know that is what's going on right there. And then the last 2 stitches in this repeat are purling 2. And just continue that pattern until you get all the way to the end of your row. For row 5, it is also identical to 7 and 9. So I'm just going to show you here, it is a lot of K's and P's. We begin with knitting 3, and you continue in the purling and knitting stitch pattern between the asterisks and continue knitting as many multiples of 14 as you've cast onto your needle until you get to the very end, and those are just 2 knit stitches at the very end. After row 5, let's take a moment to just admire our work, and we can see how the edges and the little lattice work are surrounding our seed stitches. Row 10 begins with 2 purl stitches and then the repeat. So the repeat is K12, P2, and that is knitting 12 stitches and purling 2 stitches. So that's our 14 stitch repeat, and we continue that to the end of the row. Row 11 is beginning with the repeat K2, P12, so that's knitting 2, purling 12, and we do that all the way to the end of the row, finishing with 2 knit stitches, K2, knitting 2. Row 12 is purling all, so you have that yarn in the front and you are purling every stitch on your needle all the way down the row. For rows 13, 15, and 17, these are identical. So it's knitting 2, and then we have a P1, K1, P1, K1, P1, and again that's those seed stitches, of course, and we continue this pattern of 7 stitches within that 14 stitch repeat all the way down to the end of the row, finishing with just 2 knit stitches, K2. And we're almost at the end here. Rows 14, 16, and 18 are identical. We begin with 2 purl stitches, and then we begin the stitch repeat of lots of P1, K1, P1, K1, and then we take a pause for purling 4. Then it's more seed stitches with K1, P1, K1, and ending with purling 3. Then simply repeat rows 1 through 18 until your lattice seed stitch pattern is the length you desire. I hope you are inspired to knit up the lattice seed stitch knitting pattern. Thank you so much for joining me here at Studio Knit. Please enjoy my other knit stitch patterns. I have so many great knit and purl patterns for you, and I will see you here next time. Bye!